Earth stared at the thing hanging above the planet. It appeared on a Tuesday morning, without warning, without sound, without explanation. One moment the sky above the Pacific Ocean was empty and blue. The next moment, something massive hung there in the space where satellites should orbit, but couldn't. The thing was enormous, roughly the size of a large island, and its surface looked wrong. When people tried to look at it directly through telescopes, their eyes hurt. The angles didn't make sense. The shape seemed to shift and change even though it stayed perfectly still. Dr. Hae-Won Park was drinking her third cup of coffee when the alerts started screaming on her computer. She worked at the International Space Observation Coalition in Hawaii, watching the sky for dangerous asteroids and space debris. She had been an astrophysicist for 15 years. She had seen strange things before, but nothing like this. Her hands shook as she ran the numbers again and again. The object shouldn't exist. It was too large to maintain that position. It should fall to Earth or drift into space. Gravity didn't work that way. Physics didn't work that way. Yet there it was, hanging motionless above the planet like someone had glued it to the sky. "This is impossible," she whispered to her empty office. She called her supervisor. Then her supervisor called the military. Within 3 hours, every major government on Earth knew about the thing. Within 6 hours, the news broke to the public. Within 12 hours, the world began to panic. Commander Jin Woo Choi stood in the underground war room in Seoul, surrounded by generals and politicians. He was a Korean military officer, calm under pressure, trained to handle crises. This was beyond anything in his training. The room smelled of sweat and fear. Everyone was talking at once. "Can we destroy it?" asked one general. "Is it a weapon?" asked a politician. "Why hasn't it moved?" asked another. Jin-Woo had no answers. Nobody did. He looked at the satellite images on the large screens. The thing just hung there, silent and waiting. Every nation with space capability had tried to scan it. The results made no sense. Some instruments said it was solid metal. Others said it was energy. Some said it was both or neither. The United States launched a probe to get closer. The probe got within 100 kilometers, then simply stopped working. It didn't explode or crash. It just turned off, like someone had flipped a switch. The same thing happened when Russia tried. Then China. Then the European Union. The thing remained untouched, unreachable, unexplained. Dr. Park didn't sleep for 3 days. She stayed at her computer, drinking coffee and running simulations. She talked with scientists around the world. Everyone had theories. Maybe it was a massive ship from another star. Maybe it was a weapon. Maybe it was a science experiment. Maybe it was something humans didn't have words for yet. On the third day, Hae-Won was staring at her screen when the headache hit. It felt like someone was pressing words directly into her brain. She gasped and grabbed her desk. Around the world, 7 billion people experienced the same thing at the same moment. The message was clear and simple, arriving in every language simultaneously. You are not ready, but you will be tested. Then silence. Evelyn sat frozen in her chair, her heart pounding. She grabbed her phone and called her sister. The call wouldn't connect. She tried again. Nothing. She looked outside her window and saw people in the parking lot, all standing still, all looking up at the sky with the same expression of shock and fear. The thing had spoken to all of them. Every human on Earth had heard it in their mind. Commander Choi felt the message like ice water in his veins. He looked around the war room. Every person stood motionless, processing what had just happened. For the first time in his military career, Jin-Woo saw genuine fear on the faces of his superiors. "What does it mean? You will be tested?" Someone finally asked. Nobody answered because nobody knew. The news networks exploded. Social media crashed from the flood of posts. Governments issued statements trying to calm their citizens. But how could they calm people when they were terrified themselves? Churches filled with people praying. Scientists appeared on television trying to explain the unexplainable. Dr. Park forced herself to keep working. Fear wouldn't help. Panic wouldn't help. She needed to understand. She pulled up all the data they had collected over 3 days. She looked at the energy readings, the gravitational anomalies, the strange way light bent around the object. Then she noticed something. The object was pulling tiny amounts of energy from Earth's magnetic field. The amount was so small that she had almost missed it. It wasn't hurting anything. Earth's magnetic field was vast and powerful. This was like taking a single drop of water from an ocean. But why was it doing that? Was it feeding? Was it preparing for something? She wrote a report and sent it to every scientific organization she could think of. Within an hour, other scientists confirmed her findings. The thing was definitely drawing energy, but the purpose remained unknown. Commander Choi didn't go home that night. He stayed in the war room, coordinating with military forces around the globe. Every nation had put their armed forces on high alert. Fighter jets patrolled the skies. Ships positioned themselves in the Pacific Ocean beneath the object. Submarines waited in the deep water. Everyone was ready to fight, but nobody knew what they were fighting or if fighting would even help. His daughter Jian called him on his secure line. She was a quantum physicist working at a research facility in Daejeon. "Dad," she said, her voice tight with stress, "I've been analyzing the message. The way it was transmitted directly into human brains. That technology is centuries beyond us. Maybe thousands of years beyond us. What are you saying?" Jinwoo asked. "I'm saying that if this thing wanted to destroy us, we'd already be dead. It's doing something else. Testing us, like it said. We need to figure out what kind of test before we do something stupid like attacking it." Jinwoo knew she was right. But telling frightened generals not to attack when an alien object hung over their planet would be nearly impossible. The world held its breath and waited. News channels showed the thing 24 hours a day. Scientists debated on television. Religious leaders offered prayers and interpretations. Ordinary people looked up at the sky and wondered if they would live to see tomorrow. Dr. Park finally went home on the 4th day. She took a shower and fell into bed, but couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the message. "You are not ready, but you will be tested." Not ready for what? Tested. How? She got up and made more coffee. She returned to her computer. If this was a test, humanity needed to pass it. She didn't know what failure would mean, but she suspected it wouldn't be good. Around the world, other scientists were thinking the same thing. Military leaders prepared for war. Politicians tried to maintain order. Parents held their children close. And above it all, the thing hung in the sky, massive and mysterious and patient. The test was coming. Humanity would face it ready or not. Earth stared at the thing hanging above the planet. And for the first time in human history, the thing stared back. The first test arrived at dawn on the 5th day. Corporal Soo-min Lee was on patrol in Seoul when the ground began to shake. She was a young soldier, only 23 years old, stationed near Yeouido Park. The morning was quiet and cold. Most people were still sleeping. Then the earth cracked open, and something rose from the ground. Soo-min grabbed her radio and called for backup. But she couldn't stop staring. A tower was growing from the earth, like a plant in fast motion. It was made of crystal or glass or something that looked like both. It was beautiful and terrifying. The tower rose higher and higher until it reached about 50 meters tall. Then it stopped growing and began to hum with a soft, musical sound. Similar towers appeared in 11 other cities around the world at the exact same moment. New York, London, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, Cairo, Beijing, Tokyo, Moscow, Sydney, Lagos, Mexico City. 12 towers in 12 cities, all identical, all humming the same note. Sue Dashman approached the tower carefully, her rifle ready. She knew it was probably useless against alien technology, but it made her feel better to have it. The tower's surface was smooth and warm to the touch. As soon as her fingers made contact, images flooded her mind. She saw mathematical equations she didn't understand. She saw diagrams of machines she had never seen before. She saw puzzles that made her head hurt. But she also understood somehow that these towers wanted humans to solve problems. They wanted humans to work together around the world. The same thing was happening. People touched the towers and received visions. Scientists, soldiers, ordinary citizens, everyone who made contact saw the same. Puzzles and challenges. Dr. Park was on the first plane to Seoul. She needed to see the tower in person. When she arrived, a crowd had already gathered around it, kept back by military barriers. She showed her credentials and was allowed through. Commander Choi was already there, coordinating the military response. "What do you think?" Jinwoo asked her. Haewon touched the tower and closed her eyes. The visions came immediately. "It's a test," she said, "but not just of intelligence. Look at this." She showed him her tablet, where she had started writing down the equations. These problems are designed so that no single person can solve them alone. No single city can solve them alone. Every tower is connected to the others. We have to work together. All 12 cities. All of humanity. Jinwoo understood immediately. This was the test. Not of human weapons or technology, but of human cooperation. The problem was that humans weren't very good at cooperation. Different nations spoke different languages. They had different governments, different priorities, different grudges against each other. Getting 12 cities on different continents to work together perfectly would be nearly impossible. But they had to try. Lieutenant Tae-hyun Nam led a squadron of fighter jets toward the main object still hanging above the Pacific. His orders were simple. Try to reach it again. Gather any information possible. His jet was equipped with the newest cameras and sensors. He was a skilled pilot, calm and focused. As he approached the object, his instruments began to fail. Not all at once, but one by one. First, his targeting system went dark. Then his communications. Then his navigation. He tried to turn back, but his jet wouldn't respond. Instead, it gently turned around on its own and flew him back toward the nearest airbase. Tae-hyun landed safely, shaking with frustration. The thing had simply sent him away like a parent sending a child to bed. Every other pilot in his squadron reported the same experience. The object was untouchable, and it clearly wanted to keep humans at a distance. Back at the towers, work had begun. Scientists from around the world connected through video calls, sharing what they learned from the visions. The first puzzle was about energy. The tower showed them how to create clean power from water and sunlight, but the formula was split across all 12 towers. Tokyo had part of the equation. Cairo had another part. Sao Paulo had another. Sue Dashman watched as scientists and engineers worked around the Seoul Tower day and night. She brought them coffee and food, making sure they stayed alert. She didn't understand the science, but she understood the importance. If they solved these puzzles, maybe the thing above the planet would be satisfied. Maybe it would leave them alone. The first breakthrough came after 30 hours of continuous work. All 12 cities had shared their pieces of the puzzle, and the complete equation was assembled. The moment it was solved, something amazing happened. The towers glowed brighter, and new information appeared. This time, the towers taught them how to build something. The design appeared in everyone's mind who touched the towers, a device that could purify any water instantly, removing all pollution and contamination. The towers also showed them how to manufacture it using materials that were common and cheap. Dr. Park realized what was happening. The towers were rewarding cooperation with knowledge. Every time humanity worked together successfully, the towers gave them something useful. This wasn't just a test. It was a lesson, but not everyone was happy about it. Some governments wanted to keep the knowledge secret. They wanted to use it for their own benefit, to gain advantage over other nations. Meetings at the United Nations became heated arguments. Some countries threatened to stop sharing information from their towers. Commander Choi spent hours on conference calls, trying to convince military leaders that cooperation was the only path forward. "We don't know what happens if we fail this test," he told them. "But I don't think we want to find out." His daughter Ji Yeon called him with troubling news. "Dad, I've been studying the energy readings from the towers. They're pulling power from Earth, just like the main object. The amount is tiny, almost nothing. But it's there. These towers are connected to our planet somehow. Is it dangerous?" Jin Woo asked. "Not at the current rate. It would take thousands of years to notice any effect. But it raises questions about what they're really doing here." Days passed. Humanity struggled to cooperate, but slowly, they were learning. Scientists put aside national pride to work on common problems. Engineers shared designs freely. Even politicians began to realize that old conflicts didn't matter when faced with something beyond human. Understanding. The towers continued to provide challenges. Each one was harder than the last. Some required complex mathematics. Others required engineering solutions. Some were about biology or chemistry or physics. But all of them required the 12 cities to share information and work as one. Corporal Lee watched people from dozens of countries working side by side at the Seoul Tower. Japanese engineers helped Korean scientists. American mathematicians collaborated with Russian physicists. It was messy and difficult, but it was working. On the 20th day, a new message came from the towers. This time, it was longer, more detailed. Everyone who touched any of the 12 towers received it at once. The message explained that the towers would teach humanity everything they needed to know, but only if humans continued to cooperate. The message also warned that violence against the towers or against each other would end the test immediately. Humanity had 3 chances. 3 strikes and the test would be over. What over meant, the message didn't say. But everyone understood it wouldn't be good. Dr. Park stood at the Seoul Tower at midnight, looking up at the stars. Somewhere up there, the main object hung in orbit, watching them, testing them, teaching them. She wondered who built it and why. She wondered if other worlds had faced these towers. She wondered if those worlds had passed the test. She touched the tower again and felt the hum of energy beneath her palm. The visions came, showing her the next puzzle. This one was about medicine, a cure for diseases that had killed millions. But like all the others, it was split into pieces across 12 cities. She picked up her phone and called her colleagues around the world. "I have the next piece," she said. "Who else is ready to share?" One by one, scientists from other cities responded. They were ready. They would work together. They would solve this puzzle and every puzzle that came after. The test continued, and slowly, humanity was learning to be better than it had ever been before. The first strike came on day 30-3. General Viktor Kozlov had been angry since the towers appeared. He was a Russian military commander, old and stubborn, who believed that cooperation with other nations was weakness. He believed that Russia should control the knowledge from its tower in Moscow. He believed that strength came from weapons, not from working together. Against direct orders from his own government, he launched a nuclear missile at the Moscow tower. Dr. Park was asleep when it happened. The alert on her phone woke her, a flash of emergency news. She read the headline, and her blood went cold. She grabbed her laptop and connected to the live feeds. Cameras around the world were pointed at Moscow. The nuclear weapon struck the tower directly. For a moment, the screen went white with the blast. When the light faded, the tower stood unchanged. Not even scratched. The explosion that should have destroyed several city blocks had done nothing. Then the message came. It echoed in every human mind across the planet simultaneously. Violence against the gift is violence against yourselves. 3 chances remain. HFY realized with horror what that meant. They had started with 3 chances. Now they had 2. One more mistake like this, and the test would end. General Kozlov was arrested within hours. His own government condemned him publicly. But the damage was done. The trust that had been slowly building between nations was shaken. If one general could do this, who else might try something similar? Commander Choi called an emergency meeting with military leaders from all 12 tower cities. The video conference was tense. Jinwoo could see the fear and anger on every face. "We need protocols," he said. "Clear rules that everyone follows. No weapons near the towers. No attacks of any kind. We can't afford another strike." The discussion went on for hours. Eventually, they agreed to create joint security zones around each tower. Soldiers from multiple nations would guard each site together. No single country would have complete control. Meanwhile, Corporal Lee noticed something troubling during her patrols. She brought it to Dr. Park's attention. The towers were definitely drawing energy from deep below the Earth's surface. The amount was increasing slightly each time a puzzle was solved. It was still very small, still not dangerous, but it was growing. What if this is part of the test too? Su Min suggested. What if they're seeing whether we notice? Whether we care about our own planet while we're learning all this new knowledge? HFY thought about it. The young corporal might be right. The towers gave them wonderful technology, clean energy, medical cures, advanced materials. But they were taking something in return. Maybe humans needed to prove they paid attention to such things. Commander Choi's daughter Ji Yeon was working on the latest puzzle when she made a breakthrough. She was at the research facility in Daejeon, studying the patterns in the knowledge the towers provided. She noticed that the lessons followed a specific order. First, they learned about energy, then medicine, then material science. Each lesson built on the previous ones. She created a chart showing all the knowledge they had received so far. When she looked at it as a whole, she saw the pattern. Everything was leading towards something specific. The towers were teaching humanity how to build advanced technology, weapons, ships, defenses. They weren't just being tested. They were being prepared. Ji Yeon called her father immediately. "Dad, you need to see this. The towers aren't random. They're teaching us specific things. Things we would need for..." She paused, afraid to say it out loud. "For a war." Jinwoo felt his chest tighten. A war against who? I don't know. But whoever built these towers, they're getting us ready to fight something. The news spread quickly among the scientists working at the towers. Dr. Park gathered all the data and confirmed Ji Yeon's findings. The young physicist was absolutely correct. Every piece of knowledge, every solved puzzle, was part of a larger curriculum. The towers were training humanity, but training them for what? The answer didn't come from the towers. It came from space observatories like the one where HFY worked. An astronomer in Chile noticed an anomaly at the edge of the solar system. Something was moving toward the inner planets. Something big. The international science community went into overdrive, pointing every telescope at the anomaly. What they found made the blood drain from their faces. It wasn't one object. It was thousands. A massive swarm of objects moving in perfect formation, heading toward Earth. They were still far away, about 2 years distant at their current speed. But they were definitely coming. Dr. Park ran the calculations 3 times before she believed them. She called Commander Choi directly, not bothering with official channels. "Jinwoo, we need to talk. Right now." In person, they met at the Seoul Tower. Haewon showed him the data on her tablet. "There's something coming. A lot of somethings. They'll be here in about 2 years, maybe less. What are they?" Jinwoo asked, though he already suspected the answer. Before Haewon could respond, the towers activated. The humming grew louder. Every person touching any tower around the world received a new message. This one was longer and more detailed than anything before. The message introduced itself. "We are the Arbiters. For 10 million years, we have seeded the galaxy with potential. Most species fail our tests. They destroy themselves through greed, violence, or apathy. Those who pass receive the knowledge to defend themselves. In 23 months, the harvesters arrive. They consume all biological life on undefended worlds. You have this time to prove yourselves worthy of survival, or perish as countless others have." The world went silent. Everyone processed the message. 23 months. Less than 2 years. An enemy was coming to consume all life on Earth. The towers weren't giving them knowledge out of kindness. They were giving humanity the tools to survive. The second strike came 3 days later. A nation, which one was never officially confirmed, attempted to weaponize the tower technology against a rival country. They tried to recreate one of the advanced weapons the towers had taught them and use it in a regional conflict. The message was immediate and cold. 2 chances remain: unity or silence. Commander Choi felt the weight of command heavier than ever before. Humanity had one more chance. One more act of violence or selfishness, and the towers would presumably stop teaching them, stop preparing them. And in 23 months, the harvesters would arrive to find Earth completely defenseless. He called another emergency meeting, but this time included politicians and world leaders, not just military officers. "We don't have a choice anymore," he told them. "We either work together perfectly, or we all die. Every person on this planet, every child, every future generation, gone." The message was simple enough, but even the most stubborn leaders understood. Old conflicts suddenly seemed very small compared to extinction. Dr. Park worked with Ji-Yin and teams of scientists to analyze everything they knew about the harvesters. The Arbiters had provided some information along with their message. The harvesters were ancient, much older than the Arbiters. They were biological machines, consuming organic matter to fuel their swarm. They had destroyed thousands of civilizations across the galaxy, but they had weaknesses. They were efficient but predictable. They relied on the fact that most species weren't advanced enough to fight back effectively. They had probably never encountered a species that had been trained specifically to resist them. Corporal Lee volunteered for a new program. The Arbiters had offered to create a neural interface system, a way for humans to directly control the defensive technology the towers were teaching them to build. It was dangerous. The interface would connect human minds directly to alien technology. Some test subjects had experienced severe headaches or disorientation, but Su Min believed in humanity's ability to adapt. She believed they could learn to use the alien technology and make it their own. She became one of the first humans to successfully integrate with the neural interface. The experience was overwhelming at first. She could feel machines as extensions of her own body. But she learned to control it. Governments around the world began to change. Borders became less important. Resources were shared freely. Every factory, every scientist, every soldier was dedicated to one goal: preparing Earth for the harvester. Invasion. The towers accelerated their teaching. New puzzles appeared daily now, each one more complex. But humanity was learning faster too. What had taken days to solve now took hours. What had taken hours now took minutes. Commander Choi was appointed Supreme Commander of the United Earth Response Force. It was a position that had never existed before because humanity had never truly been united before. But now they were. They had to be. The countdown continued. 23 months became 20 months, then 18, then 15. And with every passing day, humanity transformed. The planet was becoming an armed fortress, a defended world, a place that would not go quietly into extinction. The towers stood in their 12 cities, humming with energy, teaching and preparing. And humanity learned. 23 months felt both impossibly long and terrifyingly short. The world transformed in ways no one could have imagined before the towers arrived. Dr. Park barely recognized Earth anymore. Massive construction projects covered every continent. The towers had taught humanity how to build with materials stronger than anything they had known before. Factories that used to make cars now produced weapons platforms. Shipyards that built ocean vessels now constructed spacecraft. The moon, once visited by only a handful of humans, was now a construction site with thousands of workers. HAE-1 stood in the command center that had been built beneath the Seoul Tower. Screens covered every wall, showing progress reports from around the world. Orbital defense platforms were being assembled in space. Shield generators were being installed at strategic points across the planet. Weapons that could shatter asteroids were being tested and deployed. She thought about how much had changed. A year ago, she had been a simple astrophysicist studying stars. Now she led the scientific initiative to understand harvester technology. The arbiters had shared limited data about the enemy, and it was Haewon's job to find weaknesses in that data. The harvesters were biomechanical creatures, part living tissue and part machine. They worked as a hive mind, coordinated perfectly across thousands of units. They had consumed over 4,000 worlds in their long existence. They were efficient, relentless, and ancient beyond measure, but they had patterns. Haewon found the patterns in the data. The harvesters always attacked the same way overwhelming force, straight toward population centers, consuming everything in their path. They were used to weak prey. They expected civilizations to collapse in fear. What if we don't collapse? She asked her research team. What if we hit them where they don't expect it? Commander Choi visited her facility regularly. Jin-Woo had aged visibly in the past year. The weight of command showed in the lines on his face. He was responsible for coordinating the military forces of every nation on Earth. It was an impossible job, but somehow he managed it. How are the preparations going? He asked Haewon during one visit. We're building everything the towers taught us to build, she replied. But I'm worried it won't be enough. The harvesters have done this 4,000 times before. They know how to fight defensive positions. Then we need to be unpredictable, Jin-Woo said. Humans are good at that. His daughter Ji-Yeon joined the conversation via video link from the lunar facility. She and thousands of others lived on the moon now, building the massive weapons platform that would serve as humanity's first line of defense. The work was dangerous, but Ji-Yeon volunteered without hesitation. The quantum shield generators are online, she reported. We can protect major cities for short periods, but not indefinitely. The energy drain is too high. How long can you hold the shields? Jin-Woo asked his daughter. Maybe 6 hours at full power. Then they need to recharge. 6 hours. That might be enough if humanity used the time wisely. Lieutenant Suman Lee had become something more than human. The neural interface program had expanded to include hundreds of volunteers, but Suman was the best. She could control an entire squadron of defensive drones as easily as most people could walk. Her mind was connected to the quantum defense grid, allowing her to coordinate attacks across vast distances. The process had been painful at first. The alien technology had to integrate with her nervous system, creating new pathways in her brain. But Sumin adapted quickly. She discovered she could think faster while connected, process more information, react to threats before her conscious mind registered them. She trained other neural interface pilots at a facility in Bizen. Most of them were young, like her. Older people found the integration too difficult. Their brains weren't flexible enough to adapt to the alien technology. But young minds were plastic, changeable, able to become something new. Remember, she told her students, the technology is powerful, but it's just a tool. Your human instincts are what make you effective. The harvesters think like machines. We think like people. That's our advantage. Lieutenant Taehai Nam commanded a squadron of fighters based on the orbital platform above North America. His ships were nothing like the jets he used to fly. These were spacecraft capable of faster-than-light travel, armed with weapons that could cut through steel like paper. The arbiters had provided the designs. Human engineers had built them with remarkable speed. Taehai practiced combat maneuvers daily. His squadron trained against simulated harvester attack patterns. They learned to fly in formations that confused enemy targeting systems. They learned to sacrifice position for unpredictability. They learned to think like prey that refused to be eaten. The countdown continued. 12 months became 6, then 3, then 1. When there was only 1 month remaining, the arbiters sent a final message through the towers. You have done well, better than most. But know this, the harvesters will not stop. If you defeat this swarm, others will come eventually. You must be eternal guardians of your world. There is no final victory, only survival. The message should have been discouraging, but humans have been surviving against impossible odds since they lived in caves. One more impossible challenge was just another. Dr. Park made a discovery 3 weeks before the harvesters were due to arrive. She was analyzing the energy signatures of the approaching swarm when she noticed something strange. The harvesters' coordination relied on a central nexus, a command unit that controlled the entire swarm. If that nexus could be destroyed, the swarm would lose its coordination. They would still be dangerous, but they would be disorganized. She brought her findings to Commander Choi immediately. It's a vulnerability, she said. The harvesters are too efficient, too coordinated. That coordination has to come from somewhere. I think I found it. Jin Woo studied the data. Can we reach it? It will be heavily protected, surrounded by thousands of individual harvesters. Reaching it would be merely suicidal, but possible? A1 nodded slowly. Possible. If someone was willing to make the sacrifice. They didn't have time to develop a better plan. The harvesters arrived early, 3 weeks ahead of schedule. The swarm dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system and began their approach. Billions of humans looked up at the sky and knew that everything was about to change. Commander Choi stood on the bridge of the command ship the arbiters had helped humanity construct. It was a massive vessel, built from technology that humans had learned in less than 2 years. Around him were officers from every nation: Korean, American, Russian, Chinese, Brazilian, Nigerian, Japanese, British, Australian. All working together, all trusting each other with their lives. This is it, Jin Woo said calmly. Everything we've prepared for. Remember your training. Remember why we fight. We fight for every child who deserves a future. We fight for every parent who wants to see their children grow old. We fight because giving up is not in human nature. Lieutenant Lee sat in the neural interface chamber, her mind already connected to the defense grid. She could feel hundreds of weapons platforms, as if they were parts of her own body. She could sense the approaching harvester swarm a massive cloud of biomechanical death heading toward Earth. All pilots, she transmitted through the neural network. Prepare for engagement. Remember, they've never fought anyone like us before. Let's show them what humans can do. On the lunar facility, Jian activated the quantum shield generators. Power flowed through systems built from alien knowledge but constructed by human hands. The shields sprang to life, invisible barriers of energy protecting Earth's major cities. Lieutenant Nam and his squadron launched from the orbital platform. Thousands of other fighters joined them, forming a defensive line between Earth and the approaching swarm. It looked like a suicide mission. It probably was a suicide mission. But every pilot volunteered anyway. Dr. Park watched from the command center, her hands shaking slightly. She had spent her life studying the stars. Now she would watch as humanity fought for survival among those stars. The screens showed the harvester swarm growing larger as it approached. So many of them. Too many. But humanity had one advantage the harvesters never expected. Humans fought hardest when all hope seemed lost. Humans did impossible things when told something couldn't be done. Humans survived when survival should have been impossible. The first harvester vessels entered weapons range. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The harvesters came like a storm of metal and flesh. Lieutenant Taehai and Nam saw them first as his squadron held position at the outer defensive line. They looked wrong, organic shapes wrapped around mechanical cores, moving with unnatural grace through the vacuum of space. There were thousands of them, perhaps tens of thousands, all moving in perfect synchronization. All units, he transmitted to his squadron. Engage on my mark. Remember the plan. Hit and scatter. Don't let them predict your movements. The first wave of Earth's fighters streaked toward the harvester swarm. Weapons designed from arbiter knowledge lit up the darkness. Explosions bloomed in space as the two forces collided. Taehan's ship danced between enemy fire, his movements random and chaotic. The harvesters struggled to track him. They were used to fighting species that flew in logical patterns. Humans flew like madmen, but there were so many enemies. For every harvester destroyed, 10 more took its place. Lieutenant Su Min Lee felt the battle through the neural interface. Her consciousness was spread across the defense grid, controlling hundreds of weapons platforms simultaneously. It was overwhelming, but she had trained for this. She directed fire toward clusters of harvesters, trying to create gaps in their formation. She noticed something important. When she destroyed harvesters in specific patterns, the swarm took longer to adjust. They were coordinated, but that coordination took time to propagate through the swarm. It was a tiny advantage, but tiny advantages were all humanity had. All neural pilots, she transmitted. Focus fire in dispersed patterns. Make them waste time reorganizing. The strategy worked, but only slightly. The harvesters kept coming. On the lunar facility, Ji and Choi watched the power levels on the quantum shield generators. They were draining faster than expected. The harvester weapons were more powerful than the simulations had predicted. At this rate, the shields would fail in 4 hours, not 6. She called her father on the command ship. "Dad, we have a problem. The shields won't hold as long as we planned." Commander Choi felt his stomach tighten, but his voice remained calm. "Do what you can, Ji-yeon. We'll make it work." He turned to his command crew. Officers from a dozen nations looked at him, waiting for orders. Jin Woo had never felt more responsible for so many lives. Every decision he made could save or doom millions. "Deploy the secondary defense platforms," he ordered. "Draw them toward the orbital fortifications. Make them think we're making our stand there." It was a feint. The orbital platforms would fight hard, but they were designed to be sacrificed. The real defense would come closer to Earth, where the quantum shields could protect ground-based weapons. Dr. Park tracked the Harvester Command Nexus from her command center beneath the Sol Tower. It was exactly where her calculations predicted, in the center of the swarm, protected by layers of biomechanical ships. Reaching it seemed impossible, but she had an idea. A terrible, dangerous idea. She opened a channel to Lieutenant Lee. "Su-Min, I need you to listen carefully. I think I can create a path to the command nexus, but it will only stay open for a few seconds. We need someone who can fly through it fast enough." "I'm connected to the defense grid," Su-Min replied. "I can't leave my station." "I know, but Lieutenant Nam can." One contacted Taehyun directly. She explained the plan. He would need to fly through a corridor created by precisely timed weapons fire from the defense platforms. The corridor would only exist for maybe 5 seconds. He would need to reach the command nexus, deploy a quantum weapon, and escape before the blast killed him. "What are the chances I survive this?" Taehyun asked. "Less than 10%. Haewon said honestly. Taehyun was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed. "I've survived worse odds. When do we try this?" The battle raged for days. The harvesters were relentless, attacking in waves that never stopped. Human casualties mounted. Ships were destroyed. Defense platforms fell. But humanity kept fighting. On the third day, Corporal now Captain Minjun Park coordinated ground defenses in Seoul. The harvesters had broken through the orbital defenses and reached Earth's atmosphere. Biomechanical creatures fell like deadly rain, attacking cities with savage efficiency. Minjun directed artillery fire from the tower's command center. The weapons the Arbiters taught humans to build were devastating, but the harvesters adapted quickly. For every tactic humans used, the swarm found a counter-tactic within hours. But humans adapted faster. They changed strategies mid-battle. They broke their own rules. They did things that made no tactical sense but worked anyway. Through sheer audacity. The harvesters had never fought anyone like this. They had consumed worlds for millions of years, that those civilizations had been afraid. Humanity was terrified too, but they were angry more than afraid. Angry that someone dared to threaten their home. Angry that their children were in danger. Angry that the universe thought humans would just lie down and die. On the 7th day, Dr. Park finalized her plan. Lieutenant Lee had identified the perfect moment, a gap in the harvester formation that would appear for exactly 7 seconds during the next attack wave. Lieutenant Nam was ready, his ship fueled and armed with the quantum weapon. "This is it," Haewon said to the command crew. "Everything depends on the next few minutes." Commander Choi watched the tactical display. The harvester swarm was reorganizing for another major assault. This was the moment. He gave the order. "All units, execute the Haewon maneuver. Give Lieutenant Nam the path he needs." Every human fighter, every defense platform, every weapon system coordinated by Lieutenant Lee fired simultaneously. The concentrated barrage created a corridor through the harvester swarm, blasting ships aside and creating a clear path to the command nexus. Lieutenant Nam flew. His ship screamed through the corridor at maximum speed. Harvester vessels tried to close the gap, but the defensive fire kept them at bay. Taehyun saw the command nexus ahead, a massive, biomechanical structure that pulsed with strange energy. He armed the quantum weapon and launched it. The weapon streaked toward the nexus and detonated. For a moment, nothing happened. Then reality seemed to crack. The quantum explosion didn't just destroy the nexus, it shattered the dimensional space around it. The explosion cascaded through the harvester swarm's connection network. The swarm collapsed. Thousands of harvester vessels suddenly lost coordination. They stopped moving in perfect synchronization. Some began firing randomly. Others fled in different directions. The hive mind was broken. Lieutenant Nam tried to escape the blast radius, but he didn't make it. The quantum explosion caught the edge of his ship. The last thing he transmitted was, "Worth it." With the command nexus destroyed, the battle turned. The harvesters were still dangerous individually, but they were no longer an unstoppable swarm. Human forces surrounded and destroyed them systematically over the next 9 days. On the 16th day, the last harvester vessel was destroyed over the Pacific Ocean. Earth had won. The cost was terrible. Millions had died. Cities were damaged. The orbital platforms were destroyed. Lieutenant Nam and thousands of other pilots had sacrificed their lives. But humanity survived. Commander Choi stood on the bridge of his command ship, looking at Earth through the view screen. The planet looked wounded, but alive. He thought about all the people who had died defending it. He thought about his daughter, who had held the quantum shields until the last possible moment. He thought about Lieutenant Nam's final transmission, the Arbiter Station, the thing that had hung above the planet for almost 2 years, transmitted its final message. You have passed. Not perfectly, not elegantly, but with a ferocity and creativity we have not witnessed in 80,000 cycles. You are now guardians. The galaxy needs defenders, not just survivors. Will you answer? Dr. Park stood in the ruins of her command center, reading the message. Humanity had proven itself, not by being the smartest or the strongest, but by being the most stubborn. By refusing to surrender even when defeat seemed certain. Commander Choi called a meeting with world leaders. They gathered in a new unified government building constructed in neutral territory. Representatives from every nation sat together, no longer divided by old conflicts. The arbiters are asking if we'll help defend other worlds, Jinwoo explained. Other species who might face the harvesters or threats like them. The discussion was brief. The answer was obvious. Humanity had been tested by fire and survived. Now they had knowledge and technology beyond anything they had before. And they had learned the most important lesson, that cooperation was stronger than any weapon. Captain Minjun Park coordinated the reconstruction efforts in Seoul. The city had been badly damaged, but people were already rebuilding. Humans were good at rebuilding. They had done it countless times throughout their history. Lieutenant Lee disconnected from the neural interface for the first time in weeks. Her body was exhausted, but her spirit was strong. She had helped save humanity. She and hundreds of other neural pilots had proven that humans could master alien technology and make it their own. Ji-yeon Choi returned to Earth from the lunar facility. She hugged her father for the first time in months. They didn't speak about Lieutenant Nam, though they both thought about him. Heroes deserve to be remembered. One man,